The next day was Thursday. And before we set out for the walk to my school, I went around behind the caravan and picked 2 apples from our tree, one for my father and one for me. At 8 o'clock, we started walking down the road towards my school, in the pale autumn sunshine, munching our apples. "Have you brought money to buy the raisins?" I said. My father put a hand in his trouser pocket and made the coins jingle. "Will Cooper's be open so early?" "Yes, they open at 8:30. I really loved those morning walks to school with my father. We talked practically the whole time. Mostly it was he who talked and I who listened, and just about everything he said was fascinating. He was a true countryman. We parted at the school gates, and my father went off to buy the raisins. Other children were streaming in through the gates and heading up the path to the front door of the school, and I joined them. Ours was just a small village school. There were about 60 boys and girls in it, and their ages went from 5 to 11. We had 4 classrooms and 4 teachers. Miss Birdseye taught the kindergarten, the 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and she was a really nice person. She used to keep a bag of aniseed balls in the drawer of her desk, and anyone who did good work would be given 1 aniseed ball to suck. The 7- and 8-year-olds were taught by Mr. Corrado, and he was also a decent person. He was a very old teacher, probably 60 or more, but that didn't seem to stop him being in love with Miss Birdseye. We knew he was in love with her, because he always gave her the best bits of meat at lunch when it was his turn to do the serving. A teacher called Captain Lancaster took the 9- and 10-year-olds, and this year that included me. Captain Lancaster, sometimes known as Lankers, was a horrid man. He had fiery carrot-coloured hair and a little clipped carroty moustache and a fiery temper. He had been a captain in the army during the war against Hitler, and that was why he still called himself Captain Lancaster, instead of just plain Mr. Mr. Snoddy, our headmaster, took the top form, the 11-year-olds, and everybody liked him. He was a small round man with a huge scarlet nose. I felt sorry for him. The nose was so big and inflamed, it looked as though it might explode at any moment and blow him up. Something horrible happened on that Thursday morning. We were having our first lesson of the day with Captain Lancaster, and he had set us a whole bunch of multiplication sums to work out in our exercise books. I was sitting next to Sidney Morgan in the back row, and we were both slogging away. Captain Lancaster sat up front at his desk, gazing suspiciously round the class with his watery blue eyes. Sidney Morgan covered his mouth with his hand and whispered very softly at me, "What are 8 9s?" "72, I whispered back. Captain Lancaster's finger shot out like a bullet and pointed straight at my face. "You!" he shouted. "Stand up!" "Me, sir?" "Yes, you blithering idiot!" I stood up. "You were talking. What were you saying? Out with it!" I stood still and said nothing. "Are you refusing to answer me?" he shouted. "Please, sir," Sidney said. "It was my fault. I asked him a question." "Oh, you did you? Stand up." Sidney stood up beside me. "And what exactly did you ask him?" "I asked him what are 8 9s, Sidney said. "And I suppose you answered him?" "Yes, sir." "So you were cheating," he said. "You may be permitted to cheat and lie and swindle in your own homes, but I will not put up with it here." At this point, a sort of blind fury took hold of me, and I shouted back at him, "I am not a cheat!" "You are not only a cheat, but you are insolent," he said quietly. "Come up here, both of you." As I stepped out from my desk and began walking up towards the front of the class, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I'd seen it happen to others many times, but up until now it had never happened to me. Each time I'd seen it, it had made me feel quite sick inside. Captain Lancaster reached up to the topmost shelf of the bookcase and brought down the dreaded cane. It was white, this cane, as white as bone, and very long and very thin, with one end bent over into a handle, like a walking stick. "You first," he said, pointing at me with the cane. "Hold out your left hand." It was almost impossible to believe that this man was able to injure me physically and in cold blood. The long white cane went up high in the air and came down on my hand with a crack like a rifle going off. Never had I felt a pain such as that in my whole life. I remember grabbing my injured left hand with my right hand and ramming it between my legs and squeezing my legs together against it. I managed not to cry out loud, but I couldn't help the tears from pouring down my cheeks. From somewhere nearby, I heard another fearful swish, crack, and I knew that poor Sidney had just got it as well. Go and sit down, both of you. We stumbled back to our desks and sat down. Now, let us have no more cheating.